The elevator doors opened on the 4th floor. No one was standing there. But the guest inside still felt it. That specific, undeniable sense that something had been waiting for those doors to open. She pressed the button for her floor again. The doors slid shut. And on the security footage reviewed the next morning, for exactly 4 seconds, the elevator's interior light dims to almost nothing, then snaps back to normal right as the doors close. No power outage. No maintenance issue. Just 4 seconds caught on camera that nobody working that hotel has ever been able to explain. Tonight, we're staying entirely within the United States. 5 American hotels, 5 guests, and a night at each one that none of them have fully shaken off. One of these stories comes with a 911 call on record. Another ends with 3 staff members quitting the same week. If you've ever gotten off an elevator in an old hotel and felt like you needed to walk faster to your room, you already know the feeling we're talking about tonight. Let's get into it. Welcome back. This channel is built on one rule: real accounts, real locations, no fabricated jump scares dressed up as fact. Tonight we're keeping it close to home. Haunted hotels across the U.S. told through the guests, staff, and in some cases the official records left behind. If this is your first time here, subscribe now, because by the time we get to story 4, you're going to want to see what else is on this channel. Let's start in the mountains of Kentucky, at a resort that's been welcoming guests since the 1880s, and, according to some of them, never quite let a few of the old ones leave. The Appalachian Grand Hotel, Kentucky. This hotel has been operating continuously since the late 1800s, which in itself isn't unusual. Plenty of grand old American hotels have. What is unusual is how consistent the reports are, decade after decade, guest after guest, about one specific hallway on the 4th floor. In 2022, a woman named Jenna checked in solo for a work conference. Nothing about her room stood out until close to midnight, when she heard what sounded like a piano playing, faint, a few notes at a time, like someone practicing. She figured it was coming from a ballroom somewhere below. She called the front desk to ask what time the music would wrap up, since it was carrying more than she'd expect for a room this high up. The clerk paused before answering. There was no piano playing anywhere in the hotel that night. The ballroom had been locked and empty since 9 p.m. Jenna assumed she'd misheard something from another room and let it go, until 15 minutes later, when the notes started again, except now they seemed to be coming from directly outside her door. She opened it. The Riverside Hotel, Texas. If you're still here, drop 4th floor in the comments. I want to know how many of you are still with me before we go further. And if a hotel has ever done something to you that you still think about, tell me. Some of the best episodes on this channel started as a comment exactly like that. Next story involves an actual 911 call. Stay with me. A century-old hotel along a Texas riverfront, the kind of building where the lobby still has the original tile floor and the elevator still creaks in a way that feels almost intentional. In 2021, a couple, we'll call them Derek and Amanda, checked into a 2nd-floor room for a weekend trip. Around 2 a.m., Amanda woke up because the bathroom faucet was running. Neither of them had touched it. Derek got up to shut it off, and found the water running ice cold. Even though they'd left the room's thermostat on warm all night and every other tap in the building ran warm within seconds. He shut it off, went back to bed. 10 minutes later, it turned back on by itself. This time, Amanda called the front desk, more annoyed than scared, assuming it was a plumbing issue. The night clerk told her, flatly, that maintenance had already logged 2 other rooms with the exact same complaint that same week. Always between 1 and 3 a.m., always resolving itself by sunrise, and always in rooms on that same side of the building. What tipped this story from annoying to something else was what happened next. Derek, half joking, said out loud to the empty bathroom, "Okay, you can turn it off now." The faucet shut off immediately. Later that year, a different guest on that same floor called 911 in the middle of the night, convinced someone had broken into their locked room. Dispatch records confirmed the call was made, and officers responded, found the room locked from the inside, and no evidence anyone else had been there. The guest insisted, on record, that they'd heard someone breathing directly behind them while the lights were off. Derek and Amanda finished their trip. They just switched rooms first, no faucet issues after that, on a different floor entirely. We're at the halfway point. If you're getting something out of this one, tap that like button. It's the single biggest thing that helps this channel find more people who'd actually enjoy this stuff. Story 3 is the one that made 3 separate staff members request a floor transfer. Let's get into it. The Grand Pacific Hotel, California Coast. A restored oceanfront hotel on the California coast, originally built in the early 1900s as a retreat for wealthy vacationers. Beautiful building, beautiful views, and a service elevator that, according to hotel staff, nobody wants to ride alone after dark. Housekeeping staff have independently reported to management, not to each other, which is the part that makes this one stick, that the service elevator sometimes stops on the 3rd floor without being called there. Doors open onto an empty hallway and then closes and continues on its own as if someone had gotten on and off. In 2023, a guest named Priya was staying on that same 3rd floor for a conference. Around 11 p.m., she heard what sounded like someone dragging a luggage cart down the hallway outside her room. Slow, deliberate, wheels catching slightly with every few feet. She looked through the peephole. Nothing. No cart. No person. The dragging sound continued for almost another full minute after she'd already confirmed the hallway was empty. The next day, mentioning it to a housekeeper almost as small talk, Priya watched the woman's expression change completely. The housekeeper told her, quietly, that 3 separate staff members had requested reassignment off that floor within the past year, and that none of them would say exactly why in writing. Only that they didn't feel right working it alone. Priya finished her stay without further incident. She just left her television on, muted, for the rest of the trip. She said the silence in that hallway was somehow worse than any actual sound would have been. The next 2 stories are the heaviest on this list, and the last one comes with hotel maintenance logs that back up exactly what the guest described. If you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment to do it, because next week's story tops even this one. The Mountain Lodge, Colorado, a ski lodge in the Colorado Rockies, popular in winter, quiet the rest of the year. And it's the quiet season that produces almost all of this hotel's reported incidents. In 2020, a solo guest named Chris checked in during the off-season, taking advantage of the empty building for a work retreat. Late on his 2nd night, he heard what sounded unmistakably like children running down the hallway outside his room. Footsteps, quick, overlapping, the specific rhythm of kids racing each other. The lodge, at the time, had exactly 4 guests checked in. All 4 were adults traveling alone. Chris opened his door in time to see nothing. An empty hallway, silent. The running sound simply gone the instant the door opened. He mentioned it at breakfast, more curious than shaken. The manager told him, without much drama, that the sound of children running has been reported by guests for years, always during the off-season, always on that same corridor, and that it's become common enough among longtime staff that most of them don't react to it anymore. What unsettled Chris more than the sound itself was something he noticed walking that hallway the next morning in daylight. A section of carpet, roughly child height, worn down slightly more than the carpet around it, in a hallway that, per the lodge's own occupancy records, had seen a fraction of the foot traffic of the rest of the building that season. The historic downtown hotel, Illinois, the one on record. This last one is the most documented story on the list, because part of it isn't just a guest's account. It's in the hotel's own maintenance and incident logs. A grand downtown hotel in Illinois, opened in the early 20th century, still operating today, still drawing guests specifically because of its reputation. In 2022, a guest named Robert checked into a room on the 7th floor. Around 1:30 a.m., The room's thermostat display began cycling through numbers on its own. Rapidly, well outside any range the system was designed to hit, before settling back to normal. Robert called it in as a maintenance glitch. Engineering came up, found nothing wrong with the unit, and logged the call, a log that, when a later guest reported the exact same malfunction 8 months after, engineering pulled up and cross-referenced. Same unit. 5 hotels. All within the United States. 5 guests who checked in for a business trip, a weekend getaway, a ski retreat, and walked away with a story they still can't fully explain. Maybe there's a mechanical explanation for a thermostat. Maybe an old building settles and creaks in ways that sound like footsteps. But it gets harder to wave off when the same complaint, from strangers who've never met, keeps landing in the same room, the same hallway, the same floor, year after year. If this one got to you, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And in the comments, tell me which of these 5 American hotels you'd still book a room in, and which one you'd turn around and drive straight home from. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep the lights on,